The storm outside roared with a fury that rattled the small windows of Ethan Miller's modest home. The single dad had just finished tucking his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, into bed, her soft breathing already steady as the rain hammered the roof. Ethan sighed, weary from another long day at the construction site, his calloused hands aching but his heart steady. He was used to storms, life had thrown him plenty since his wife had passed away, but this one felt different, heavier somehow, as though the night itself carried a secret. Just as he turned off the lamp and settled onto the couch with a book, a faint, desperate knocking echoed through the sound of the wind. Frowning, Ethan rose and opened the door. There, standing drenched in the downpour, was a woman. Her dark hair clung to her pale face, her clothes soaked through, her eyes wide with both fear and exhaustion. She hugged herself tightly, shivering, as if she had been walking in the rain for miles. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse, "my car broke down the road. I didn't know where else to go." Without a second thought, Ethan pulled her inside, closing the door firmly against the storm. He guided her to the living room, handing her a towel and one of his old sweatshirts. "You'll catch your death out there," he said, his voice steady but kind. She hesitated before slipping into the dry clothes, murmuring her thanks. When she finally sat by the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket, Ethan studied her. She introduced herself softly as Claire, her words careful, her gaze distant, as though she carried a story she wasn't ready to share. The night passed quietly. Ethan made her a cup of tea, and though their conversation was brief, the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was almost heavy, as if both sensed something unspoken. When Ethan offered his bed, choosing to sleep on the couch instead, Claire's eyes lingered on him with a strange mix of gratitude and guilt. He told himself it was just another storm, just another stranger needing shelter. But as he drifted to sleep, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that her arrival was more than chance, that this woman had walked into his life for a reason he could not yet understand. The next morning, Ethan barely had time to process the previous night's events before the routine of life pulled him forward. He got Lily ready for school, packed her lunch, and kissed her forehead, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman who had appeared at his door. Claire's sudden presence in his home had been startling, yet something about her vulnerability had stirred a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years. After dropping Lily off, he hurried to the construction site, unaware that the storm of last night was about to return in a way he could never have predicted. As he stepped onto the busy lot, the low rumble of engines and the chatter of the crew faded when a sleek black car rolled up. A sharp click of heels against concrete turned heads, and Ethan froze, his heart skipping a beat. There she was, Claire, no longer soaked and fragile, but poised and commanding in a tailored navy suit. Her hair was neatly pulled back, and her expression radiated authority. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. She glanced over the site, clipboard in hand, and addressed the crew with a voice that carried effortlessly over the noise. "I'm Claire Donovan, the new CEO of Donovan Enterprises," she announced. "From today, we're making some changes, and I expect everyone to follow my lead." Ethan's stomach tightened. He stared at her in disbelief, recalling the frightened woman from last night wrapped in his sweatshirt, trembling in his living room. His mind raced, why hadn't she told him who she was? Was it a coincidence, or had fate brought her to his doorstep for a reason far beyond simple chance? The workers whispered among themselves, clearly impressed by her confidence, but Ethan felt a mixture of confusion, suspicion, and curiosity. He kept his distance, watching as she inspected the site with precise, authoritative steps, yet occasionally her gaze flicked toward him. In those brief moments, he saw the flicker of recognition, a shadow of the vulnerability she had shown him just hours before. All day, Ethan worked under the weight of her presence. Tasks that usually felt routine now carried a strange tension, a sense that their lives had become intertwined in a way neither of them fully understood. Every glance between them held questions unsaid, and every shared silence hinted at truths yet to be revealed. By the time the whistle signaled the end of the shift, Ethan knew one thing: the woman he had saved in the rain was now his boss, and the storm that had brought them together was only just beginning. The days that followed were a strange mix of tension and curiosity for Ethan. Claire moved through the construction site with unwavering authority, implementing changes and issuing instructions that left the crew both impressed and intimidated. Yet there were moments, brief, fleeting, when her gaze would find his across the site, a subtle flicker of recognition or something unspoken that made his chest tighten. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about that stormy night, the vulnerable woman who had knocked on his door, and how different she now appeared, confident, commanding, untouchable. He wondered what had driven her to seek shelter, and why she hadn't mentioned her true identity when she had appeared so desperate. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the workers began to wind down, Ethan saw Claire standing alone near the scaffolding, her usual composure softened by exhaustion. He approached cautiously, unsure if he should speak. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said quietly, the words almost instinctive. For a heartbeat, she remained still, as if weighing whether to trust him with her secret. Then she exhaled sharply, running a hand through her hair. "You weren't supposed to see me like that," she admitted. "Last night, I didn't know where else to turn. I shouldn't have come to you, I wasn't supposed to need anyone's help." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Claire, everyone needs help sometimes," he said gently. "No one can do everything alone." Her eyes darkened with a shadow of fear and frustration. "Not me. Not in my position. People would destroy me if they knew I had weaknesses," she confessed, her voice trembling despite her professional facade. She glanced toward the busy site, lowering her voice. "There are things happening in this company, dangerous deals, hidden contracts from my father's old partners. I didn't just run from the storm, I ran from them, from everything that could hurt me or my company." Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness and determination. The woman in front of him wasn't just a boss, she was someone burdened with fears and responsibilities far beyond her years. He knew he couldn't leave her to face it alone. "Then let me help," he said firmly. "Whatever it is, you don't have to handle it by yourself." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time, her armor cracked entirely. She nodded slowly, a flicker of relief passing over her face. In that moment, Ethan realized their bond was no longer just about gratitude for a single act of kindness, it was about trust, about two people finding a connection in the middle of life's storms. The weeks that followed tested both Ethan and Claire in ways they hadn't anticipated. Claire worked tirelessly to reclaim control of her father's company, confronting corrupt board members and uncovering hidden deals that threatened the business. All the while, Ethan continued his life as a single dad, raising Lily and managing his construction work, but now he carried a new weight, the responsibility of being a silent protector for Claire. He never imposed himself, never demanded answers, but simply offered steady support, a warm smile, a listening ear, and quiet reassurance. It was in these moments that Claire began to trust him more than anyone else, drawn to the simplicity and honesty of his life, and to the warmth he shared with Lily, who adored her instantly. One evening, after a long day of meetings and confrontations, Claire found herself standing outside Ethan's home, shaken by a veiled threat left at her office. Without hesitation, she turned to him, seeking refuge. Ethan opened his door immediately, welcoming her inside with a calm confidence that made her heart ache with relief. Lily, oblivious to the tension, offered Claire her favorite blanket and a wide smile, wrapping her tiny arms around the woman's waist. Watching them together, Claire felt an unfamiliar sense of peace, a comfort she hadn't realized she was missing. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe and feel safe. The final confrontation came swiftly. During a tense board meeting, Claire exposed the corruption that had festered in her father's absence. With evidence carefully gathered and her team behind her, she dismantled the schemes of those who sought to undermine her. Ethan watched quietly from the back, silently proud, knowing that her courage had shone brightest not despite the storm she had endured, but because of it. That night, under the soft glow of porch lights, Claire turned to Ethan, her voice barely a whisper. "You saved me once in the storm, and then again by showing me I didn't have to face everything alone." Ethan took her hand, smiling, feeling the weight of unspoken emotions finally lift. And you saved me too, he replied gently. You reminded me that life can be more than surviving, it can be living, fully, with hope and love. As the rain had once brought them together, trust, courage, and a shared bond now cemented their connection. Ethan, Lily, and Claire, 3 lives intertwined by a stormy night, had found something rare: family, love, and the strength to face whatever storms lay ahead, together.